Hey folks, it's Dovid Konikov, and I'm sure many of you know that the UN is probably one of the most anti-Semitic, anti-Israel organizations in the world. And one of the greatest fighters of that is Hillel Neuer of the UN Watch. He's had some incredible speeches throughout the years, and I wanted to break down the UN bias against Israel, starting with his famous speech. This is Hillel Neuer's famous speech at the UN.
Israel has used the worst kind of abuse, ethnic cleansing, and imposing a regime of apartheid.
Israel continues to exercise apartheid in Palestine, which constitutes a crime against humanity, violence and terrorism that are being exercised against the Palestinian people.
These violations include the building of apartheid walls to legitimize the theft of land and to Judaize Jerusalem.
The separation wall is an example of the apartheid policy practiced by Israel.
Israel's practices of discrimination as well as extremism.
United Nations Watch have the floor.
Mr. President, let me begin by putting the following on the record. Everything we just heard from the world's worst abusers of human rights, of women's rights, of freedom of religion, of the press, of assembly, of speech, is absolutely false and indeed Orwellian. Today's report does not consider Israelis to be deserving of human rights, consistent with the approach of this Council, where today's notorious agenda item against Israel completely ignores their human rights. Now, over the weekend, President Abbas announced he was giving his highest medal to Rima Khalaf, who resigned from the Economic Commission of Western Asia, a Beirut-based UN agency of 18 Arab states, after Secretary General Guterres rightly instructed her to remove an absurd report which accused Israel of, quote, apartheid. Mr. President, why is Mr. Abbas celebrating a report written by the notorious Richard Falk after his own Palestinian mission here tried in 2010 to remove Mr. Falk on the basis that he was, quote, a partisan of Hamas, as we know from WikiLeaks? The accusation against Israel is absurd. Israel's 1.5 million Arabs...
The delegation of Palestine has the floor.
More than one statement goes beyond the mandate of this sitting, using unacceptable terms about Ms. Rima Khalaf, and so we would like this to be stopped. We have noted some terms which are humiliating vis-à-vis the Council, and we call for the respect of our traditions within the Human Rights Council. Thank you.
We would support the viewpoints that have already been expressed by the State of Palestine as well as Egypt.
Now, the previous speaker can continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Israel's 1.5 million Arabs, whatever challenges they face, enjoy full rights to vote and to be elected in the Knesset. They work as doctors and lawyers. They serve on the Supreme Court. Now, I'd like to ask the members of that commission that commissioned that report, the Arab states from which we just heard, Egypt, Iraq, and the others, how many Jews live in your countries? How many Jews lived in Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Libya, Morocco? Once upon a time, the Middle East was full of Jews. Algeria had 140,000 Jews. Algeria, where are your Jews? Egypt used to have 75,000 Jews. Where are your Jews? Syria, you had tens of thousands of Jews. Where are your Jews? Iraq, you had over 135,000 Jews. Where are your Jews? Mr. President, where is the real apartheid? Why is there a UN commission on the Middle East that does not include Israel? From the 1960s and the 70s, they refused to include Israel. Where is the apartheid, Mr. President? Mr. President, why are we meeting today on an agenda item singling out only one state, the Jewish state, for targeting? Where is the apartheid, Mr. President?
Let him cook. Just incredible from Hillel Neuer at the UN there. Just totally stunning the entire room, leaving all the Arab countries and the dictators that kicked out these Jews and basically have a Judenrein, meaning they don't have any Jews in their countries. They don't accept Jewish people into their countries, and they wouldn't be safe. Jews would not be safe in their countries. And that wasn't only it. These are some more highlights. I wanted to show you even more of Hillel Neuer taking on the UN. Here is another speech where he just shocked the entire room.
I now give the floor to a representative of United Nations Watch.
Thank you, Mr. President. 6 decades ago, in the aftermath of the Nazi horrors, Eleanor Roosevelt, René Cassin, and other eminent figures gathered here on the banks of Lake Geneva to reaffirm the principle of human dignity. They created the Commission on Human Rights. Today we ask, what has become of this noble dream? In this session, we see the answer. Faced with compelling reports from around the world of torture, persecution, and violence against women, what has this council pronounced? What has it decided? Nothing. Its response has been silence. Its response has been indifference. Its response has been criminal. One might say, in Harry Truman's words, that this has become a do-nothing, good-for-nothing council. But that would be inaccurate. This council has, after all, done something. It has enacted one resolution after another, condemning one single state, Israel, in 8 pronouncements, and there will be 3 more this session. Hamas and Hezbollah have been granted impunity. The entire rest of the world, millions upon millions of victims in 191 countries, continue to go ignored. So yes, this council has done something. And the Middle East dictators who orchestrate this campaign will tell you it is a very good thing, and that they seek to protect human rights, Palestinian rights. So too, the racist murderers of Darfur women, the rapists of Darfur women, tell us they care about the rights of Palestinian women. The occupiers of Tibet care about the occupied, and the butchers of Muslims in Chechnya care about Muslims. But do these self-proclaimed defenders truly care about Palestinian rights? Let us consider the past few months. More than 130 Palestinians were killed by Palestinian forces. This is 3 times the combined total that were the pretext for calling special sessions in July and November. Yet the champions of Palestinian rights, Ahmadinejad, Assad, Gaddafi, John Dugard, say nothing. Little 3-year-old boy Salam Balusha and his 2 brothers were murdered in their car by Prime Minister Haniyeh's troops. Why has this council chosen silence? Because Israel could not be blamed. Because, in truth, the despots who run this council couldn't care less about Palestinians or about any human rights. They seek to demonize Israeli democracy, to delegitimize the Jewish state, to scapegoat the Jewish people. They also seek something else, to distort and pervert the very language and idea of human rights. You ask, what has become of the founder's dream, of Eleanor Roosevelt, of René Cassin, of John Humphrey, P.C. Chang, Charles Malik, who assembled here in Geneva 60 years ago? Mr. President, with terrible lies and moral inversion, this council is turning that dream into a nightmare. Thank you, Mr. President.
Por primera vez.
For the first time in the session, I will not express thanks for that statement. I shall point out to the distinguished representative of the organization that just spoke, the distinguished representative of United Nations Watch. If you'd kindly listen to me. I'm sorry that I'm not in a position to thank you for your statement. I should mention that I will not tolerate any similar statements in the Council. The way in which members of this Council were referred to, and indeed the way in which the Council itself was referred to.
God forbid you criticize the UN. And in case you're not 100% on the bandwagon that the UN is an anti-Israel, anti-Semitic organization that is run by tyrants, literal people that butcher people and then pretend like they're so appalled by Israel committing a just war, just doing exactly what it needs to do to defend itself. And here is the extent to which the UN is anti-Israel with actual statistics. Check
times has the UN General Assembly passed resolutions condemning Israel? Approximately.
In the year 2022, there were 15 resolutions on Israel. There was one on Iran, one on Syria, one on North Korea, and 15 on Israel. There have been hundreds over.
Hundreds?
Yeah.
Hundreds, yeah. And every year, probably at least double digits, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how many against the Palestinian Authority?
The Palestinian Authority is never condemned at the United Nations. No.
So you're talking about just Israel has more condemnations by the UN Human Rights Council of Justice and Fairness only, so Israel has been condemned more than all the other nations combined. That just shows the level of depravity at the United Nations, the level of Jew hatred. Hillel Neuer, check him out. UN Watch, doing God's work, continuing to expose the anti-Israel bias at the UN. I wish him the best of luck. For more, you can subscribe to this channel if you want to help us make more of these videos. You can also go to buymeacoffee.com/JewishUncensored. I'll leave it in the description below. Thank you, and have a good one.